And this is a 1,000-mile race, or 10 hours, whichever is completed the soonest. The second longest American Le Mans Series race of the year, and it will finish in the dark. In GT2, the fastest of the Porsche drivers was Jörg Bergmeister, taking second place, whilst the class pole was taken by Ralph Kellerner's in the Risi Competizione Ferrari F430. In GT1, the Astons were third and fourth, with the 009 the faster. But it was a Corvette front row, with the 3 Corvette setting the pole time under the control of Johnny O'Connell, and this was his second ALMS pole here. Intersport had to rebuild their car after a crash on Wednesday, and John Field only got one fast lap in qualifying before the steering rack broke. With the drivers not getting in the compulsory night practice, they'll start from the back of the grid. At the top of the class, as expected, were the 2 Penske Porsche RS Spiders. Timo Bernhard was slightly slower than Lucas Luhr, who set a new class record with his pole-setting lap. In the P1 class, Butch Leitzinger and the 16 Dyson flat-spotted the tyres. Cars have to start the race on the tyres they qualify with, so after changing them, they go to the back of the grid also. Frank Bieler and Emmanuel Pirot are reunited with Marco Werner this weekend and are fourth on the grid. While Zytek, their team, returned to the series, with Stefan Johansson taking third place and partnered this weekend by Johnny Molan and Haruki Kawasawa. It's a front row start, but for second place for the 2-man team of Alan McNish and Ronaldo Capello, who clinched the P1 championship at the last round in the diesel R10 Audi. The Creation team are here for their first race of the year, with Jamie Campbell-Walter, Harold Premat and Nick Manassian, who set the class and overall pole by 0.08 of a second from the Audi. We're coming down turn 11 into turn 12 now, where we will see the green flag, and it's displayed. Away we go. 394 laps of this circuit at Road America. The Creation car leads as they go into turn 1. Nicholas Manassian, brilliant in qualifying yesterday, and eclipsing Alan McNish in second. Stefan Johansson, good to see him back in the series, raced with the champion team, former champion with Johnny Herbert, champion driver with Johnny Herbert, and Zytek in third place, and the second of the diesel Audis with Marco Werner back in the series for this race. Good to see Marco back, and good to see the Zytek team as well, and they'll be battling hard through this weekend. Stefan Johansson doing the opening stint, a little bit of tyre smoke coming up there. That's the 20 Dyson car, the 16 car at the back of the grid, because they changed tyres. The 2 Penske Porsches, Lucas Luhr and Timo Bernhard, 5th and 6th place at the moment. Chris Dyson, the Dyson 20 car, in 7th. Duncan Dayton in the Highcroft car is 8th. Sorry, yes, he's 8th, as we see the Zytek move through to take second place. And that's the view from the number 2 champion Audi with the yellow cowling on the top. And this is the GT1 battle of the Petit Le Mans, the 10-hour race. Ron Fellows in the number 3 Chevrolet CompuWare Corvette C6R is leading his teammate Oliver Gavin. And then it's the 2 Aston Martins. And disappointment for the Van der Steur Racing Radical. This car making its debut this weekend is in the pits with a misfire, as we look at the 62 Risi Ferrari, the 430, driven by Ralph Kellerner's, as a spin for Jörg Bergmeister in the 31 car. Unusual, and that is down from the S's, and we think he was touched by one of the prototype cars, and this is disaster for Jörg Bergmeister in a direct battle for the GT2 championship with Johannes van Overbeek. It's Stefan Johansson in the Zytek that touches the Peterson White Lightning car, sends him into a spin, and quite surprised about that, but now anxious times as that car comes to a standstill in the middle of the track. And that's the view of the Dyson pits, looking at the progress of the 16 car of James Weaver doing the opening stint. James Weaver with his regular driving partner Butch Leitzinger this weekend, and joined by Andy Wallace, who was with them at Sebring, and a bit of work for them to do as they've been making up ground from the back of the grid. Up to 8th place overall now James Weaver, as into the gravel trap at turn 10A goes Maurizio Madani in the Risi Ferrari. So not good news for that 61 car. In fact, we have got a full course caution. There wasn't really much choice, I don't think, for the race director, but we've got the green flag. The debris out of the way. The 61 car continues, and so do the rest of the field now. It's all jumbled up. Everybody's caught up with each other as we go up the hill, and it is quite a steep hill. It's amazing, this circuit. It really is a good, challenging track. Got a bit of everything. We've got a bit of debris on the circuit and full course caution, and that's from the Highcroft car, and John Field making his way from the back of the grid once past Duncan Dayton's car. Well, those two great friends, and Duncan Dayton used to drive a lot with the Intersport team as the Alex Job car, and I think that's Robin Liddell having to run wide. It is from second in the GT2 class. Robin Liddell, it's been announced today as well, will be running in one of the brand new Porsches next year. Dramas for Porsche because Timo Bernhard has bought the 7th place number 6 car from second in class into the pit lane. A throttle linkage problem. So problems for Porsche. That's good news for Intersport. They're looking for a break this weekend, and James Weaver with a very scruffy move and slams into the side of Brian Sellers in the 22 car. Not very often you see James Weaver do things like that, but fighting for position. And James Weaver in 3rd place. The Zytek coming up and looking for a way through. Not going to make it happen there. Alan McNish still in the yellow-topped Audi R10, the diesel car. Clinched the championship last year as into the pit lane comes James Weaver. Alan McNish has Stefan Johansson behind him in the number 15. The Zytek engineer in 06S. Been a brilliant car, and is up against the German might of Audi, who've been so dominant this year, and beautiful move to go through and past him. So Stefan Johansson gets past Alan McNish as into the pit lane comes James Weaver for a stop and a go penalty, and that is for avoidable contact with the 22 car, just as we expected. So the day not going right for him, and not going right for the 62 car. Ralph Kelleners has crashed on the main straight, just coming out of turn 12, and just seemed to get flipped by the curb, sent him spinning and into the main pit straight wall. And Ralph Kelleners out of the car and okay, but extremely disappointed, I would imagine. And Ferrari, the Risi Ferrari team, have been so strong this year, but have had so many failures resulting from crashes, and just that's brought everybody into the pit lane now while that car's recovered. Dindo Capello gets into the Audi. Stefan Johansson gets out of the Zytek, and into the paddock goes the number 7 car. Romain Dumas goes behind the wall, and it's a fuel leak, we're told. So problems for both the Penske Porsches, which is great news for Intersport. Number 1 Audi leading. Oh, the Dyson just spun away there. What a bizarre accident. Guy Smith was doing such a good job chasing down for the lead of the race and closing very quickly, and that car just went away from him. Hits the curb now as normal, pretty much the same line as the Audi. It spins the back around and slams him into the wall, takes out one of the Mazda Hornings across the track again, and then it's the gravel that finally slows him down. But that was a big impact. Alex Job Porsche in pit lane, coming in for a pit stop as leader of GT2, and that is another GT car spinning for the 31 car, which is having all sorts of problems today. And puncture at the back then, and it looks as if the tyre just lets go. It does. Bodywork at the back, and it just delaminates. The tyre comes away. And that is brilliant, brilliant driving to control that car and to stop it. And he'll recover to the pits as we see Johnny Molan.
Liz is run a little slower times than we'd like her to run, so, you know, if we can get her to do a couple seconds quicker lap, I think they'd have a pretty hard time passing us. So, you know, if she doesn't pick it up here in a bit, then we're going to have to put that back in and carry on.
Glenfield talking about Liz Halliday, and we think she's struggling with the problems inside that car, and it's just slowing her down. Obviously, that's gifting time to the Porsches, who are trying to close up, and it's very important that Intersport hang on to that lead. And Intersport have in fact brought Liz Halliday into the pit lane. Tyres and fuel going on that car, and John Field gets strapped inside, and he is going to set about now defending that P2 class lead. The 16 Dyson car of Andy Wallace comes to a standstill with fire on one side of the engine, and that looks to be an engine failure from the AER power plant. And what a horrible day the Dyson team are having. One car virtually destroyed and the other car stopping at the side of the track on fire. Andy Wallace even took his seat liner out of him, but he's okay. And the Aston Martin versus Corvette battle all continuing, and Johnny O'Connell comes together with the Aston Martin. Johnny not wanting to give any ground. Darren Turner moves up a place then, sharing the car with Thomas Enger this year, and Thomas Enger is the only one of the Aston Martin drivers that can win the GT1 championship this year. And this is a great little battle. A few laps separate these cars, but John Field in the Intersport car does not want to give the Penske Porsche a lap back as the Porsche goes on the inside, and John Field shuts the door very firmly. John Field is giving it everything. The Porsche is the faster of the car. It handles better. The Intersport team have a fraction of the money that Penske Porsche have to run their two cars. And John Field is driving the wheels off that Intersport Lola, the BO540 with the AER power plant that they had last year. And we're on board with Alan McNish, who is back up to the race league now in the Audi Sport North America R10 car. And in the pit lane, problems continuing this time for the Alex Joe Porsche team. A broken front lower control arm caused after running wide at turn 10. Jörg Bergmeister is now back up to the lead of the GT2 car class, as into the pit lane comes Stefan Johansson. This is because of a puncture. Tyres causing problems here this weekend. Clint Field is taking over from his dad, who did get passed at the end by the Porsche. And there's a problem with the steering rack. Drama for the Intersport team and a steering problem. What disappointment for them, and all the time that they are stuck in the pit lane here is time that the Porsches are gaining back up. And bad news at the American Le Mans Series, Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta, because the 37 car goes behind the wall. It was leading the P2 class. Problems with the steering means it had to go behind the wall, and it means that the Penske team have gone back to leading the P2 class. Lucas Law in second place. The number 6 car is now the class leader, and Corvette have pitted and are changing the brake pads, discs and calipers, as well as fuel and tyres. So well, that's confusion with the Corvettes. They obviously have a brake problem, and Jan Magnussen was in that car, and the team say the sensors are showing that the brakes are worn out, and saying because it's the extra weight, as the number 6 car gets a turnaround. And Timo Bernhard hands over to Emmanuel Collard, the driver for them for this race, as he was at Sebring. And there's been quite a difference between the Zytek and the Creation team's pit times as against some of the other existing teams here, who are just so much quicker. And the Zytek and the Creation have lost quite a bit of time in the pit lane. But things have continued to go well for them otherwise. And that's from 3rd place then. Rika Kawasara, and the Zytek is currently 4th in class. And the 2 Audis currently leading. In the pit lane, the number 3 Corvette is also having a complete brake change. So we've never seen this happen before. So Corvette having all sorts of problems, and this is just gifting the race to the Aston Martins. The time this is taking is just gifting it to them. But meanwhile, Alan McNish continues on in the number 2 Audi Sport North America Diesel R10 TDI. And Johannes van Overbeek is handing over to Wolf Hensler from 6th in the GT2 class. Disappointing run for them this weekend. And if the 31 car stays ahead of them, as it is currently, then that's going to hand more points to your Bergmeister, as we see little conversations going on in the Reynolds pits, and Pat Long in the 31 car is handing over to Jörg Bergmeister, and leader, despite earlier problems in the GT2 class. Knight is well and truly with us now as Alan McNish leads by 1 lap from teammate Marco Werner in the #1 Audi, so a whole lap in hand, which is good news for the Audi team. And Alan McNish looks like he's on his way to another win, and Jamie Campbell-Walter has stopped at the side of the track. That is by turn 5. What caused that, we're not sure, and in come the Corvettes once again. Max Papis hands the 3 car to Johnny O'Connell, and there's problems for Audi. Audi have got a problem with the front left-hand side of the #1 car. Marco Werner has a broken front left tie rod, and that is going to take some time to repair, and Bill Oberlin has stopped at turn 10. He's come to a standstill, whilst 3rd in GT2. Not quite sure what happened there. Here's a replay, just spins it round, and I think he actually lost it. I think Sebastian Bourdais didn't actually make contact with him. So disappointment for the BMW team. The #1 Audi, I think he's going to finish in the pit lane. It doesn't look as if it's going to turn a wheel, but they still need to continue repairing that car anyway. So disappointment for Audi, and yet supreme delight because they are going to win again at Road Atlanta. Alan McNish, what a great year he's had on his return to the American Le Mans Series, just taking it very easily now, and starts to wind his way down to the start and finish straight. And here he comes down the hill. 1 more turn left, and Alan McNish will see the checkered flag underneath the bridge. There it is now. The fireworks go off in the sky. Dindo Capello and the rest of the Audi team are celebrating and can relax after 10 hours, just less than 10 hours of racing, 394 laps. 9 hours and 16 minutes. Alan McNish and Dindo Capello take Audi's 8th straight Petit Le Mans win. And the #6 Penske Porsche took the P2 class win. Aston Martin get a 1-2 finish in GT1 with a 007 car the victor, and in GT2 Peterson White Lightning survive an intense battle to win.
There's a lot of pressure from the sister car and also from the Zytek and the Creation, but I think from the point of view of us driving without the pressure of a championship, that was certainly clear. We could put it onto the limit, we could run as hard as we needed to, and thankfully it was just enough at the end.